You got me for an hour. Let's talk some college football. Appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. This is the voice of college football. My name's Mark. Great to see all of you. Hopefully, some new faces, in addition to, of course, the old favorites in the chat. Talk it up in the chat. Leave your comments and questions there. Super chats will light up and will take notice. So I will recognize those first and foremost. Not that I won't answer other questions and comments there in the chat. We appreciate you stopping by. Actually had some donations come in on Venmo and PayPal today. So I will recognize those, not necessarily tonight because it's difficult for me to access PayPal on my phone, but you know who you are out there. Thank you so much for the contributions. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App are actually the best ways, most effective to contribute here to the Voice of College Football. But the Super Chat's available as well. We appreciate either one. We did a Big Ten live show earlier today with Corey Bratta. Check that out. Also, Iowa Hawkeyes live. That was at 5 Eastern. That's 5 Eastern every Tuesday. Levi Stevenson stopping by from the Iowa State channel. We did a big Cyhawk preview. Check that out. That is worth a watch for sure. All right, comments and questions are welcome. And again, I have left a link there in the chat. We're going to run through week 2, the matchups and the betting lines. Week 2, we've talked about it the entire offseason compared to week 1 because Notre Dame, Miami, Ohio State, Texas, Clemson, LSU, and even TCU and North Carolina with the Bill Belichick factor, and even Lenora Sellers in South Carolina against Virginia Tech, Florida State, Alabama. Throw all those matchups together, and it was a pretty overwhelming week 1 compared to what we see in week 2. And really the only national brands that are meeting in week 2 would be Michigan, Oklahoma. However, if you really dive into the Big Ten schedule in particular, much more important week for the Big Ten, much more competitive matchups for the Big Ten to deal with when you talk about Illinois going to Duke, Iowa State. Oregon probably not going to have any issues with Oklahoma State. When that game was scheduled, however many years ago, I'm sure that was much anticipated at the time, but Oklahoma State, unless they show me something different than what I've seen in the preseason, and this first game against UT Martin could be a rough ride for the Cowboys at Autzen Stadium as a 4-touchdown plus underdog. And again, Michigan, Oklahoma is going to be a big one as well. Some other nice matchups in the Big Ten to talk about here in week 2 and across the landscape of college football. We also want to address a few things that happened there in week 1. So let's go to the headlines first and foremost. Let's check out the chat first. Cano MC first. Christopher Foots here. Good to see you. Trojan Fight says first, like Jaden Mayava pass rating in the Big Ten. It sure is 73 points. And I did not check out the box score on that one. But man, the Trojans and Lincoln Riley took out some frustrations that they've had playing offense in the Big Ten, at least last year, and poured it on. And we will not see a USC game like we did last year against LSU in terms of a big non-conference game against anyone other than Notre Dame a little bit later. But USC's got a couple interesting games early in the Big Ten schedule against Illinois in particular. And we will see what they've got for the Big Ten. Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week. Cano MC's looking for a MAC game. Little weaker this week. Little weaker, but a little deeper, I would say, in decent matchups. Yes, not the prime real estate at the top. Cano says week 1 was pretty boring. You know, compared to the typical week in college football when we've got 6, 7, 8, 9 really tremendous games once they're played, I thought LSU and Clemson was entertaining. I thought Miami Notre Dame was the best game of the big matchups. Ohio State, Texas, was fairly close, of course, and the Buckeyes had a 2-touchdown lead, and Texas made it kind of interesting. But yeah, that was a bit of a yawner. It was interesting, but a yawner. The South Carolina Virginia Tech game, yawner. So I pretty much am on par with that. And then certainly last night, after North Carolina scored the game's first touchdown, TCU just completely outclassed Bill Belichick's crew. And that was a bad football game on Monday night. And for what we anticipated would be an Alabama rout, it turned out to be a Florida State separation by 2 scores. That was a decent ball game. We've got Tercero 87. Mark, are you always amazing at picking against the spread? Amazing? No. I have been picking against the spread for years and years and years and years. I'm not an expert, not an odds maker, not a handicapper. I'm not a professional. I just pick the games pretty much off the cuff. But I have done it fairly well. My 2 goals each and every season, 80% against the money line, 80% just picking the game straight up, and 60% against the spread. If I hit 60% against the spread, that will make anyone that's following me money. And I believe I've done my job. You have to hit about 53% against the spread to offset that 10% yield by Vegas to make money. 53% pretty much does it against the spread. So if I can hit 60%, then I will have done a job. General Ursus asks, how the heck is Alabama still ranked ahead of Tennessee? We beat our ACC opponent by 3 scores, while Alabama lost to theirs by 2 scores. You are correct. Alabama should not be ranked ahead of Tennessee. Alabama, in my estimation, should not be ranked. Please check out the top 25. That actually makes sense. Oh, my goodness. Cal's World of Sports. If you've not heard me take off on the AP poll, I think it's rubbish. And that doesn't mean I don't have respect for individuals that are AP writers. But when you put it all together, by the end of the season, they'll get it right. I just don't like how they arrive at their rankings, because there's a lot of them in the preseason poll that don't rank the teams based on how good they think the teams are. They rank them based on what they think their final record is going to be. So they look at the schedule. I don't think that should be taken into consideration. And then once we have football played, these teams need to be ranked not based on how good we think they are, but needs to be based on the performance. So Penn State, sorry, until you play somebody, you don't get ranked very high. We all believe that Penn State is a top 5 team in the nation, but until they actually prove it, and they didn't choose to play anyone in non-conference play. So Penn State in my rankings are number 24. And I think I was being a bit gracious, ranking them number 24. I rank the teams, especially this week 1, it's very easy to see the conclusion of my rankings because I'm simply rating the wins or the losses. So I still have Notre Dame and Texas and Clemson ranked because they all performed reasonably well against the top teams in the country. And any of those games could have gone the other way. Chris is here. Cano, ESPN analysts say LSU should be ranked 1 is outlandish. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that you can make a justification for Ohio State, LSU, Miami, or Florida State being number 1. You still have to make some assumptions at this point. You have to make some assumptions. Karen's here. Good to see Karen. Vandy should be ranked. Not quite in my estimation. Okay. Let's get to the news of the day. And what we have here, two things I wanted to dive into, is that apparently Dabo said something after the game that Brian Kelly took some exception to. And here it is. This comes our way via Adam Rittenberg of ESPN. While Dabo Swinney is not inflating LSU's grade for beating his team in Saturday's season opener, Brian Kelly is ready to give the Clemson coach an incomplete for his evaluation. Both coaches weighed in Tuesday on how LSU's 17-10 win at Clemson should be viewed. After trailing 10-3 at half, LSU outscored Clemson 14-0 in the second half and finished with significant edges in total yards 354 to 261 and first downs 25 to 13. LSU rose 6 spots to number 3. Clemson dropped 4 spots to number 8. Clemson should not be the 8th ranked team in the country. It's a hell of a game down to the last play, Sweeney said in his weekly news conference right out of the gate. It's like getting the final exam on day one of the class. They made a 65. We made a 58. Neither one of us were great. Kelly had not won a season opener at LSU before Saturday. I thought we dominated them in the second half, so he's really, really good grader for giving himself a 58, or he's really hard grader for us, Kelly said in his news conference when told about Sweeney's comments. Or he didn't see the second half, which that might be the case. He might not have wanted to see the second half. Kelly added that LSU is moving on to this week's game against Louisiana Tech. Clemson's a darn good football team. That's a top-notch team, and they're going to be a team in the hunt for the playoff picture. We hope we are too, but it was only one game. So I don't know if he's a hard grader or an easy grader, but I like the way that we played in the second half. Kind of a senseless story. Seems like Dabo Swinney was a bit off on his assessment of how well his team played against LSU in the second half, because LSU was clearly the better team. Clemson owned the first quarter, and then LSU took off from there. Even in the second quarter, LSU just continually shot itself in the foot. And so there you go. We will move on to the next story involving Deion Sanders after we take this call. Caden, what's going on tonight?
I was going to let you get on with the story with Deion Sanders, Mark.
No, we'll hear from you first. What do you got?
Oh, good gracious, Mark. Now you're being so gracious to me. Well, I guess I won't take it for granted, but how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Well, I do got to say, I do have my pick for the Iowa State game. Apologize about the puppy dog. She's a little bit of a rat.
No worries.
I've got Iowa State beating Iowa in Ames. Okay. And I feel like Iowa State's defense, after these last two games they played, I feel like their defense is what really is keeping their team on the ground, but also their running back game. Their running backs are really good, so I've got Iowa State winning that one.
Okay. We'll mark it down.
And then also, I did want to mention also, the weekend wasn't really a disappointment for me because I watched two teams that I really despise lose, and those two teams are Alabama and Notre Dame. And I told Will and D, I told him and Jackson that either Alabama loses 3 games this season, so Alabama goes 9-3, and then Notre Dame will lose 4 games this season. Notre Dame goes 8-4 because I feel like they'll screw up somewhere with CJ Carr against someone who they play on the road, and I feel like if they make a mistake on their schedule with on the road game, so not at South Bend, I feel like there's a possible chance that they could go 8-4, and then Alabama loses to. Do they play Texas this year?
No.
So lose to Georgia. I got them losing to Georgia, and then South Carolina.
Okay. Now
that's just my takes. Like I said, I could be wrong. Somebody could call me an idiot in the comments. Someone could say my comments are a little retarded. But you know what? Those are my comments and my opinions. So what am I going to do about it?
All right, Caden. Got anything else for us?
I do want to make mention to something that I said on Twitter regarding um, Notre Dame and Alabama. And I said, as far as Notre Dame is concerned, until they at least win a good amount of games and they win the ones on the road that I have them losing, and Miami was one of them that I had them losing. Until they can win at least a good couple games, there's at least, a 25 to 35% chance they make it into the playoffs at best. Yeah, I know. A
I'm
little bit
trying
of
to
a
make
stupid.
sense out of what you just said.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit of a stupid comment, but that's
Well,
just
I don't know
like
if
I
it's a
said.
I don't know if it's a stupid comment. I can't really decipher the comment. You said that you believe that Notre Dame is going to lose a few road games.
Yes, I did. I said that.
Do you even know who they're playing on the road?
So obviously I watched the Miami game, but I can remember the couple other teams that I had that I said that they would lose. I had them written down somewhere, but I must have forgot where I put it. But I know, I believe they got an SEC team on the road. That was one of them, and then there was a couple other games. But let me find my notes here. Can you give me 1 second, Mark?
I think we're good to go for tonight, Caden. We're going to keep moving along here.
Well, all right. Well, maybe I'll have my
Bring your
list out for
notes
tomorrow so
night.
you can have it.
All right, Caden. Have a good night.
Hey, go Bucks!
All right. Let's keep going here at the Voice of College Football. We're going to move on to our next story here with I want to hear what Deion Sanders has to say about his clock management late in the game. So this may get described in the story. If it doesn't, I will let you know what basically happened at the end of the game in Boulder on Friday night when Colorado lost to Georgia Tech. They were down. It was a 20-20 game, and Georgia Tech scored with about a minute left in the game, and then Colorado had about 50 seconds after the kickoff to score to tie the game, needing a touchdown to force overtime. And Deion Sanders apparently was questioned about it. And in the past, we have found that Deion Sanders does not enjoy being questioned about anything, does not like to be criticized about anything. So some reporter may have asked a question that Deion did not like. We'll see. A feisty Deion Sanders is pushing back against anyone second-guessing his clock management or calling out his coaching staff. The Colorado coach also announced highly touted freshman quarterback Julian Juju Lewis would see the field against Delaware this weekend and suggested the NCAA should consider some rule adjustments to promote kickoff returns. Sanders had a lot on his mind Tuesday after taking a few days to ponder a 27-20 loss to Georgia Tech to open the season. It's the first time Sanders has started 0-1 at either Colorado or Jackson State. If we hit the darn place, we wouldn't be asking those questions, said Sanders, who in his third season at Colorado, we had the place, we just didn't make it happen. Play by play, Sanders went into detail on Colorado's final drive with 1:07 left and why he saved his 2 timeouts. The first play, a pass that resulted in a -2 yards, ended up chewing a chunk of time. Quote, do you call a timeout there? No, you're right there. You don't call a timeout there. You've got to go. You've got to go. He said, you're running tempo. Okay. The Buffs ended up driving to the 50 before attempting a Hail Mary that was knocked down. We're trying to fix what was broken last week, and we're on this week. Sanders said, I was there a few days ago, but I'm gone now. I'm into this week now. Meaning mentally, he was still lost in last week's game up until a few days ago. Okay, now he's on to Delaware. The offense proved inconsistent in week 1 with Caden Salter taking over for Deion Sanders at quarterback and his offensive coordinator, Pat Shurmur, adjusts to calling plays for more of a dual threat option. The Buffs turned 3 early turnovers into just 7 points. Asked about the conversations with Shurmur in the aftermath, Sanders replied, "It's funny that you start out with Coach Shurmur and we gave up over 300 yards. Darn near 400 yards rushing. It's ironic to me. It seems like you guys pick and choose who you want to target." To Sanders' point, the defense struggled too after producing those early turnovers. Coordinator Robert Livingston's crew allowed 463 total yards, including a late 45-yard touchdown scamper from Georgia Tech quarterback Haynes King. "We did not lose the game because of Coach Shurmur, Coach Livingston, or one specific thing," Sanders said. "I've got to do a better job." Caden Salter, 17 of 28 for 159 yards and 1 TD in his Colorado debut. He also rushed for 43 yards and another score. "I don't have to really sit down and say, Caden, you should have ran right there," Sanders explained. "You don't think he knows that? I'm pretty sure the internet has told him." So he didn't take off a few times, apparently, when there was room to run. Okay, back to the clock management situation in this game. So if you did not see the game, and I didn't necessarily chart it, so my specifics may be slightly off. Again, Haynes King took off on a touchdown run of 45 yards with 1:07 left to play. It said there in the article. So after the kickoff, Colorado had 67 seconds to move about 60 yards, 70 yards. They were probably at the 25, 30-yard line, something in that range. 70 to 75 yards, 67 seconds, had 2 timeouts. They throw a swing pass to the running back in the flat. He gets mauled, gets thrown down for a 2-yard loss. So similar to a team's approach at the end of the first half when they're trying to determine, do we take advantage of field position or not? You usually run a play and then see if you gain yardage, big yardage, maybe convert a first down, get positive momentum going in your direction, plus increase your yardage advantage. And then you decide, okay, we're going to go for it. We've positioned ourselves. Maybe they got the ball at the 20-yard line. You hit a 14-yard pass. You're out to the 34. You only chewed up 7 or 8 seconds. Okay, we're on a roll. Let's go. Or you get sacked or you get a penalty and there's only 15 seconds on the clock. You're back behind the sticks at 2nd and 17. You decide, okay, no reason to risk it here. We're in a bad down and distance situation and timing is not on our side now. We've just wasted 13 or 14 seconds. We're going to call it quits. That first play is huge at the end of a game or at the end of the first half. And you've got a decision to make, obviously, at the end of the first half to go for more points or not. When it's at the end of the game, it's do or die. They had to score a touchdown. So they ran off way too much time, because one thing to take into consideration would be if they needed a field goal, then you lean into saving 1 timeout for a field goal attempt to get your field goal unit onto the field. But that was not the case. They needed a touchdown. And if you just saw the situation play out, there is no reason that a team with 2 timeouts would take over the football with 67 seconds left in the game and be at their own roughly 30-yard line and only make it to midfield, only advance about 20 yards and chew up all their time, not take a timeout, and have to go for a Hail Mary. And I heard Caden Salter criticized on the broadcast because the second to last play of the game, he chucked it like it was a Hail Mary. So there was like 8 seconds left in the game. Colorado is at the 50-yard line. And Caden Salter sees a receiver separating from the defense. He's got a good 3 or 4 steps. He had him. It was a tough throw to make, but the receiver beat the defender. I think that was a worthwhile chance and risk to take to try to connect with the receiver once he broke free. That was your shot right there. You're not looking to get into better field position to kick a field goal. So if you can take a shot at the end zone with 7 or 8 seconds left in the game, knowing you've got one more play if this doesn't get completed, that was a worthwhile risk to take. It was actually a smart play, percentage-wise. And again, I heard some criticism from the announce team that he shouldn't have taken that shot. Well, what are you going to do? If you run out of bounds and gain 5 or 6 yards, what does that do? You still have a 45-yard bomb. Or if you dump it off and the back gains 10 or 12 yards, you're still sitting at the 38, and you've got to take another shot at the end zone. That's a low percentage throw. So Deion obviously did not explain what happened. Not at all. He basically said, you just got to go, 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 go. We're running tempo. That did not answer the question. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. We got the real MVP on the line.
Hey, Mark, I'm surprised you didn't hear Deion's comments. Obviously, when it's 3rd and 1 and the clock is running, you only need 1 yard to pick up a first down. So why would you call a timeout when you need just 1 yard to pick up a first down?
Yeah, somebody needs to sit down with him and explain time and down and distance.
Yeah, well, the thing that's irrelevant in that is the 3rd and 1. Just for anybody that's curious, it could be 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 10. That's irrelevant. The distance is literally irrelevant. It's the clock is your number one enemy in the scenario.
Yeah. At what point in the game was the 3rd and 1 in this
with
sequence?
like 30 seconds to go and it was kept ticking down?
So I remember the first play was the swing pass that lost 2 yards. And then I think the second play was Caden Salter started running down the middle of the field and was probably thinking in his head, I got to get to the sideline to stop the clock.
No. You're missing a play. They ran they had a 14-yard completion over the middle of the field, and they got down 1 yard short of the first down line.
Okay. So it was the third play of the series was the 3rd and 1.
Right. They should have called a timeout at the 3rd and 1. That way they would have had like 40 or 50 seconds left. And then you can run the play to get the first down, get out of the bounds. All you have to do is when you call the timeout, you actually give yourself room not to have to run out of bounds. Because if you get the first down, it stops the clock for a few seconds. Then you run up, spike the ball, and then continue on with your drive. Just horrible clock management. Mark, that's a plague. Like in the Washington State-Idaho game, nobody cares about it since Washington State won. They spiked the ball with 8 seconds left. Just a dump. And then what he did is he had a timeout left. So, he could have recentered the ball. He could have run a play to get closer. No, he called a timeout after spiking the football. Just dumb. There's just no reason. You kick it, 3 seconds left. You give Idaho a chance to run the ball. Now, obviously, they're Idaho, so they just basically conceded the game by just running the kickoff out of the end zone and didn't even try to do any laterals or anything. But still, why even give them that chance? It makes no logical sense. But time management issues seem to plague college football every single year. And, it's something that will always continue to plague college football.
Yeah, because of the relative inexperience of the players on the field, I have a little bit more sympathy and understanding for the players at 18 or 19, 20 years old of making and being the ones that are in the moment on the field, making split-second judgments and decisions of making those errors. But the coaches have to be better prepared than that. They put way too much time and effort and long hours into preparing these game plans and probably are extra anal about certain aspects of a game plan or their program that they don't need to be, and they need to be better at these type of situations.
Absolutely. You think that's one of the key things they would focus on, because this happens every game, and this has cost the teams games in the past, and this is something fans are very hypercritical of. So you think, in terms of priorities, this would be higher on the list, at least from saving your own job standpoint, as like a selfish standpoint. Well, if I screw up in one particular cup area, maybe I can get away with some misalignments or not adjusting properly. But man, mismanaging the clock, I have to be on it, because fans are at least smart enough to understand that. So I really don't understand it.
I would also say that if you look at the power structure within college football and the power conferences, it only makes sense that the best teams only play so many close games versus the Georgia Techs and the Colorados and the Michigan States and the Mississippi States of the world play a lot of close games. So, not that clock management isn't important for everyone, but the more mediocre you are, save the entire Big 12, basically, the more likely it is that you're going to encounter these situations most weeks.
Right. I absolutely agree with you. And you'd think they would hire a head coach or maybe have a time management coordinator or somebody who just specifically focuses on that specific role. I mean, they have analytics for what you should do for every single play and every single situation. So I'm surprised they haven't come up with like a chart or something to say, okay, this is when you call a timeout. This is when you don't call a timeout. In this situation, you run the ball versus pass the ball versus being inside the hashes in order to get the ball at this line.
Yeah, the only thing I would say there is I would think that there are just so many variables to so many situations that it would be difficult to put a chart to it because there's
I
so
get
many
it, but I mean,
distances and so many different downs and distances to deal with.
I understand, but with analytics, I mean, it's pretty extensive if you want it to be. So, I mean, it is. You could condense it because there's a lot of them that's pretty obvious.
So Colorado was obviously throwing these Hail Mary passes from roughly the 50-yard line.
Right.
Uh, I think they started the drive at the 25 or 30-yard line. They gained about 20 to 25 yards. And how many plays did they run in
Five
a
or
minute
six.
7?
5 or 6.
Yeah.
That's not great. That's the issue. Is you should be able to run 10 to 12 plays in that scenario.
Yes.
And the fact they lost, that's the chances for blown coverage, defense that's confused or something just taken away. And I would have liked to see him try to run because I think the issue with the first Hail Mary is you had 18 seconds on the clock left. Let's say you get it to the 40 or 30-yard line. Well, you can open up the playbook for trick plays like a hook and ladder or maybe a jet sweep or just something different to throw it off. You give yourself more options because if you're at the 50, you must use a Hail Mary. So I think that's where the criticism from the announcer was coming from. But Mark, I wanted to ask you, people are seemingly upset over ESPN's FPI tool because they still, despite the Ohio State-Texas result, have Texas as the number one team in the country. I don't have an issue with it because it's an odds platform and not a ranking, but do you have an issue with Texas being ranked number one by their power rating?
Okay, so yeah, I, like you, am understanding of what they're trying to achieve there. So, to the average fan who is simply looking at, well, how could they be number one in the country? They've played one game and they lost. Why wouldn't the other team be number one in the country? There's a few other things involved there. If you truly believe in the home road advantage, um, Ohio State won by a touchdown, then won by 7 points. Okay. Theoretically, Ohio State would win by 4 points on a neutral site, and they would win by 1 point at Texas, theoretically. Once you take statistics, I don't recall from the box score, but I believe Texas had a yardage advantage. You can come up with all sorts of factors. And again, I don't know exactly what they're trying to achieve. You just said that it was prediction based.
Yeah, the FPI is a power rating system. So it's like all it is saying is if you had Team A play Team B, who would be favored to win that game on a neutral site? That's all it's trying to project. So it's currently saying Texas is slightly better than Georgia. That's all it's saying. And it's measuring the gap by their FPI points. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't have a huge issue with it, although it does fly in the face of common sense. Texas did just play Ohio State and they lost.
It does, but Vegas has done this previously, and they were correct, by the way. In 2023, Alabama-Georgia played in a neutral site for the SEC championship game. Alabama I would say, controlled the game and beat the University of Georgia. And then what happened in the national championship game? Or it's not 2023, 2022, sorry. 2022, Alabama played Georgia. Alabama controlled the game. They won. 2022 national championship, Georgia was still favored to beat Alabama, and Georgia went on to win the national championship. So it takes a lot for odds makers to move their opinion based off of where they set their template at.
Correct. But if the FPI is in any way connected to the odds makers had Ohio State as a 1-point favorite. Now, at a neutral site, I guess Texas would have been a very slight favorite. And you're right. It does take Vegas a lot to move off of its opinion of a team. Now, the example that you cited with Georgia and Alabama playing a rematch in the national championship game, I know that we could go through the history of the FPI, and I could cite maybe nearly as many examples of the FPI getting it wrong on a rematch.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is definitely issues with their algorithm. I just think people complaining about the conclusion of their algorithm by just saying, well, Team A beat Team B, therefore Team B needs to be higher, isn't reflecting of what the algorithm is trying to do. And that's my issue with people complaining. Like, I think the algorithm, for example, focuses way too much on team talent. Like, there was that year Ohio State had like a 6% chance to win the Big Ten because they lost a bunch of their production.
Yeah.
And that's nonsense. So they needed to change their algorithm. And that's fair to criticize.
Do you recall who the number one team in the country was at the conclusion of the national championship game last year?
No, for the FPI?
Yeah.
I can actually go and find that out for you. It is Ohio State.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have the rest of the top 5 to 10?
Yeah, it's Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame, Bama, Ole Miss, Penn State, Georgia, Oregon, Tennessee, Indiana.
Bama. You see, that's where I'm a bit perplexed, because what, except for some high-end wins, would lead us to believe that Bama should be ranked to that high based on some of their awful performances?
Well, I need to pull up the 2024 schedule, but something I have an issue with the FPI is they take into effect margin of victory way too much, especially against lower level FBS and FCS teams. Like, here's a perfect example. In this year's FPI ranking, the University of Southern California moved up 8 spots, and they're now the number 6 team in the country because they destroyed Murray State 73-13. Whereas if they'd won that game 45-3, they would have moved up drastically less. But it's to me and to you and to everyone else, that's basically the same score. But to their algorithm, it's not the same score. So those high-end wins where they absolutely crush teams like LSU, for example, is going to weigh much more significantly than close losses to teams.
So this same FPI formula is the one that gives us in-game probabilities, correct?
This is correct.
Okay. That is where I've generally had an issue. Where I have had an issue is more so, although I have had an issue with the rankings, and I just pointed out Alabama certainly did not play through 13 games last year, especially after a bowl loss to Michigan. Played like the 4th best team in the country last year. I have issues with what I've seen out of in-game percentages. There have been way too many times when I've seen some kind of comeback in the 4th quarter. That was a really good comeback, but nothing miraculous. And, back in the day, not necessarily now because I never watched SportsCenter and there's no reason to, but back in the day, would be watching SportsCenter and they love to go to the FPI probability and say, this team had a 1% chance of winning in the 4th quarter. They were down by 10 with 5 minutes left. And it just boggled my mind that the percentages would be that out of balance, and also the percentages going into these games. Like if we went through the schedule right now for week 2 and for the rest of the season, even I could point out some fairly just what seemed to be miscalculations by the FPI in regards to winning percentage from the two teams.
Oh, and yeah, I absolutely agree that they do make mistakes. But I think what people are misinterpreting is currently in college football, there isn't a functional way to have strength of schedule be indicated. And I think the FPI, it's not a tool that I love or like defending or anything like that, but I do think it does get to the crux of the issue of we're trying to more equitably measure strength of schedule and weight it in a proper way. And also by getting rid of the notion, well, if you win a game 13-3, that's the same as beating a team 45-3 because a win is a win or a loss is a loss. So I think ESPN's FPI tool does help guide us to the correct direction, but I does not think it is all the way there. And I do think we need more accurate models. Like S&P Plus is another good one that I think people should use more as an example. Do you have a problem with this Illinois versus Duke game?
Not significantly. I know Illinois is a roughly 2.5 to 3 point favorite on the road against Duke. Now, certainly based on the rankings, most college football fans would be appalled by this because Illinois is supposed to be the 12th best team in the country, and Duke is nowhere close to a top 25 team. But again, there's a difference between what the formulas tell us and the math versus just people's perceptions coming off a particular season. Illinois, I believe, is overvalued by the public.
Oh, I do too. And I think Duke is also undervalued and was undervalued last year because they went 9-3 last year and finished unranked. Now, what I do when I would analyze about that game is Duke did struggle for a significant period of time against Elon, but then pulled away late. And that's something I wish the FBI did a better job of quantifying, is if you struggle for long periods of the game, that needs to be factored against you. I wish they had their formula public, to be honest with you. That way we could parse through it and just say, this is where it was right and this is where it's wrong. But I'm just speculating based off everything I've seen.
I think that the FPI is about 10 percentage points heavy on this one.
I would agree.
65-35. If they played 100 times, Iowa State's not winning this football game that many times.
Yeah, they're not winning 2/3 of the games that they play in the Cy-Hawk Trophy. I mean, Vegas has it like more of 50. What would 3.5 points be? 55-45.
That sounds what it should be. This Baylor SMU matchup is pretty interesting, and SMU at 67%, and they're just a 2.5 point favorite.
Yeah, that's another one.
There we go. We've got Illinois as a 2.5 point favorite at 48%. We got SMU as a 2.5 point favorite at 67%.
Yeah, I agree. It's large disparities, first off, between them and Vegas, which, first off, credit to ESPN for publicly going against Vegas. But I think it's because Baylor lost by 2 touchdowns at home. I think they overinflate the home road advantage.
I would love to have seen what the win probability was in this Ole Miss Kentucky matchup going into last year's game. But Ole Miss is about a 10-point favorite, and they're at just under 84% on the road to Kentucky. That, to me, is a little heavy, but not egregiously. I'd go more in the high 70 percentile, 77, 78% to 2022.
It was 91.3 to 8.7 last year.
Wow. Correct.
But they were 15.5 point underdogs.
And before anybody jumps on that is delegitimizing the FPI, of course it's going to be wrong. It's not going to, there are upsets. There are things called upsets. Now, if they have too many games that are 91-9 that turn out in favor of the 9% chance probability team, then there's something wrong with the system. But, well, I would think that out of all your 90-10 games, what would make sense? That 1 out of every 10 times that the team with a roughly 10% chance of winning would win the game.
Right. And it would be interesting. It would be interesting to track it. And I'm not defending this model, saying it's the model we need to use and it's the model that everybody should ascribe to, because I don't agree with their rankings totally. I'm just saying this is a good first step into addressing one of the key fundamental problems in college football. And that's not taking into account strength of schedule nearly as much as they should.
Here's a game to real MVP. And you and I both know that if we're sitting here late Saturday night and Mississippi State's pulling off an upset against Arizona State, that people are going to be like, bouncing their head off the ceiling, not believing what they're seeing. But it's only 54-46 according to the FPI, and it's only a 6.5-point spread according to Vegas.
Yeah, and did you see any of the Mississippi State Southern Miss game?
I saw like 5 plays.
I'll tell you, Southern Miss got their head coach and basically their entire team from Marshall last year, who went 10-4. Southern Miss went 1-11 last year, but assuming they're more like the 10-4 Marshall team, that could turn out to be a very quality win for the SEC, because it's a road win against a decent Group of 5 opponent with maybe the 16th, 15th, or 14th best SEC team, depending on how Alabama does. So I think Mississippi State's probably going to win that game, just to be honest with you.
We have an opportunity here this week, and after this comment, I'll give you one more chance to chime in with anything else. I better move on to these other calls. But there's a real opportunity here, considering what's expected of Arizona State in the Big 12 and what's expected of Mississippi State in the SEC, that if Mississippi State pulls off a win and then Arizona State blasts its way through the Big 12 and Mississippi State gets kicked around as expected in the SEC, it's going to look really, really bad for the Big 12.
Yeah, and the Big 12 has taken a lot of beating this year, abnormally so. Like, their second or third best team going into the season in Kansas State almost lost to North Dakota. I mean, that's just atrocious, Mark. The Oklahoma game, I'm shocked they're favored by 5.5. I see no logical sense for Oklahoma being favored by that much. Bryce Underwood looked good. And I'm not saying that compared to last year's Michigan team, where they literally had nobody with an arm. He can throw the football. They got an offense. They're able to use their wide receivers. He gives them a chance every single possession to score, and they don't need to play the field position game anymore. But Oklahoma did look good with their quarterback against Illinois State. But, the level of competitions in these games is really hard to determine. The only worry, I guess, where I have some pause and maybe Vegas has some pause, is the Michigan defense. Giving up 17 points to New Mexico, who's projected to be one of the worst teams in their conference, not exactly thrilling. And I know they had a trick play down the goal line in which they snapped the ball to their running back to throw it to the end zone, but the elite Michigan teams from years past wouldn't even allow them to get in that position. So that does give me some pause going into this game. But anyway, Mark,
and to continue on that point, not just the 17 points, but the lack of separation there. So at that point, it was 27-17 in the fourth quarter.
Right. And at halftime, it was only a 7-point game. It was 17-10.
Yeah.
So they were legitimately challenged. It reminds me more of last year's team. I think what happened is it reminds me of somewhat of Iowa from a year ago, where their offense is going to take a step or two forward, but their defense is going to take a step back. And this doesn't mean their defense is terrible. They're going to be from a top 5 defense to a top 15 or 20 defense. But that could be 7 to 10 points on any given game.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with you, but based on that performance, yeah, they might be taking a step back on defense. We'll see.
Yeah, no, it's just one game, and it's hard to dissect it. We need to see more results, and next week's obviously going to be a big test, but it's just early prognostications. Anyway, Mark, I'll see you later.
Thanks to Real. We've got an appearance by myself on Michigan Podcast, speaking of the Wolverines, so you get my rundown on Bryce Underwood, the Michigan team, his development against New Mexico, and the game coming up with Oklahoma, John Mateer at quarterback. So check that out. Michigan Podcast with Steve Deist and yours truly. He asked me about the Buckeyes in Texas as well. we take this next call, we got Adam's comment here. Adam, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Mark, I suspect that Arch Manning and Ty Simpson were very nervous and it affected their performance. If you were playing in front of 100,000 people, what would you do to reduce the anxiety and enable yourself to perform? Well, I'm going to take this on more from a coaching standpoint than a playing standpoint. It's kind of difficult for me to put myself, being decades past playing age, in that position. But considering having children and considering having droves of people under me in my former job and coaching to a certain extent, managing, coaching, mentoring, those sorts of things, I'll put myself in the coach's position without really thinking this through. So putting me on the spot just to come up with something. Well, one thing I know Ryan Day mentioned, and they talked about on the broadcast, was that they basically, and even though this was Julian Sayin and not Manning or Simpson on the road, they took them through a complete dress rehearsal of the game from the beginning, from the locker room speech and getting suited up and coming through the tunnel and the timing of all of it, and how much they would have to wait, and even going through an entire game and going through timeouts and TV timeouts and standing around and halftime. And they went through the entire thing all the way through singing Carmen, Ohio at the end of the game. Now, to an empty stadium and maybe there was crowd noise pumped in, that's a futile attempt to try to mock what you're going to see on game day when it's all flesh and blood in front of you. However, it is something to at least get the body clock and the expectation at a certain level of what to expect in regards to the pacing of the game and the pacing of everything surrounding the game. So that could be done for the road team as well, and Manning and Simpson. Other than that, I think a lot of these things that we throw at these guys to try to prepare them, they must work to a certain extent. You know, how many times do you see running backs going through body bags and dummies where they're getting just barely touched, and that's supposed to prepare them for being able to go through a line of 300-pounders and not get the ball stripped out of their hands. And it seems a bit ridiculous. Is it? Well, football teams continue to do it, so it must be effective. Same thing with quarterbacks. You know, let's just kind of throw our hands in their face and kind of, try to replicate to a certain extent while they're in their, shorts and T-shirts and throwing the ball against no one. I think it would be, for me, a little bit more about discussion. Just talking to them about, this is what you love to do. This is what you're really good at. And what the worst thing could be? The worst thing could be is that you go out there, you throw 3 interceptions, and we lose by 3 touchdowns. And you know what? We're going to go to practice. We're going to fly back. And you've got a long life to live. And you've got a lot to accomplish. And, this happened to Tom Brady here. This happened to Peyton Manning here, and here. I would start out, maybe I'm taking a page from John Wooden here without thinking about it. John Wooden used to say, anytime that he was trying to teach a player how to do the right thing on a basketball court, he would show him what the mistake was, what the issue was. He would show him what he did that was wrong. So he'd go over and say, this is what you did. And then he would try to erase that thought, what was entrenched in his mind, by showing him multiple times, this is what you're supposed to do. And I never got deep in psychology or sociology in school. However, I did take psychology and I did take sociology, and a lot of sports experiments came to mind right there about the power of positive reinforcement, meditation, envisioning things. The studies we've heard about the basketball teams, where one basketball team, they're both lousy shooting from the free throw line, and one basketball team is shooting 55%, the other team's at 55%, and they take one team and they just continue to practice and practice and practice and practice and try to give them better technique. And they improve from 55% to 58%. Then they take the other team for a week. They don't shoot at all. And they just go through mental preparation, calming their nerves, helping them to breathe, helping them to channel positive thoughts, helping them to envision themselves shooting over and over and over and making all those shots. And then they come out and they make a larger improvement. I think all of those things can be done. But again, maybe going through the negative first, and then just to let them know that the worst outcome is not that bad. It's not the end of the world. Whatever happens, that may be one of the elements to competitive sports that freezes people more than anything. It's the thought that this is life and death. This is the end of the world. And if I don't perform, if I strike out with the bases loaded in the ninth inning, if I throw an interception in the end zone with the game on the line, if I miss the field goal down 2 from 50 yards, whatever the situation, if I miss the free throw down by 1 with 1 second left, it's the end of the world. Well, it is the end of that game. You blew the game, but life goes on. I think all of us in the chat can probably, that have a few years behind us and a few trips around the block, can think of all sorts of times when we thought, man, did I blow it? Man, did I do this? Man, did I suck at that? Man, that seemed like the worst day of my life, or this seemed like just the worst outcome possible. Didn't turn out to be that big a deal. All right. We take our last 2 callers. We've got DeAndre on the line. DeAndre, what's going on?
What's going on, Mark? Can you hear me?
I got you.
Okay. 3 quick things, and I'm gonna let you go. First off, thank you for the picks this week. Hey, y'all need to sign up for the $99 picks that Mark did. If y'all out there, I think went 6-2.
Well, I hope I can continue that. So I'll do my best.
Yeah, I was kind of worried about that Boise State game. I went the other way. It's kind of hot.
Good for you.
Yeah. Let me go ahead because I want you to be able to get off.
You're fine.
I'm gonna say something weird, and I want you to follow me here. This Bill Belichick, to me, is a poor development of talent. Now, when I say that, everybody say, "Well, he developed Tom Brady." Tom Brady kind of fell in his lap. Sort of. He didn't know nothing. I think it was the 6th-round pick.
Yes.
Okay. If you look at that team, his first 3 Super Bowls, that was really the guys that Bill Parcells brought together. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Then you go look at his time in Cleveland, and he's always been good at getting like Corey Dillon on his intern, Moss. I can't think of the guy, Wes Walker. I think Wes Walker started off in Miami.
Sure. Yep.
I give him
Julian
credit
Edelman.
for
Edelman.
I give him credit for. Well, Edelman was at Kent State, wasn't
Yes, he was.
he? Yeah.
He was a quarterback.
Yeah. I give him credit also for Hernandez and Gronk. But pretty much most of his draft picks have been terrible. That's why it was kind of weird when a lot of people were cheering him coming to Carolina, because he's really never been good at picking and development talent. I think he only had 1 good year with Cleveland.
Yes.
Then he fell off. So I know a lot of people say, well, he won 6 Super Bowls, but there also was a lot of stuff behind those Super Bowls too. I mean, he did videotape other team practices. And I'm not saying other teams didn't do it, but he got caught. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. Next thing, and this is the last thing. Do you think that these quarterbacks get kind of overrated? Like, I give you perfect example. I told you this before the season started. I thought Cade was overrated. I know I said, well, just one game this year, but I don't think he looked good. Ty Simpson was a 5-star draft pick, recruit. So was Quick Neuros and what's the other guy? Archie didn't look good. Archie Manning didn't look good because they have money to go to these camps and they get kind of rated. It's kind of high. I mean, you know what I think about quarterbacks, but I just think these guys get kind of overrated because they are able to go to these camps.
I really can't answer that. I don't know that. I'm not that deep into the recruiting game that I would hope that they would be able to look past that and be able to. I would hope that most of the evaluation would be during games and not during camps. But we know that the camps are highly, highly scouted. There's no doubt about that.
I give a perfect example.
Yep.
Lamar Jackson and what's the name? Allen. They probably top 2 quarterbacks. They were highly recruited guys out of there. What's called?
Neither was Baker Mayfield.
Yeah. What about Prescott?
Neither was. Well, I don't know. I'm not positive about Dak Prescott. I would think that he would have gone to a bigger football power if he was. I don't know. And I always wonder about guys like Joe Flacco. How I don't know if there was an issue with something other than football that allowed him to go to an FCS school and not go to a big time football power.
Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger. They all probably had the same equal. I heard Suggs say he thought that Big Ben was just as good as Peyton Manning and Eli. Brett Favre went to Southern Miss. So, I think Brett Favre probably predict those recruiting things. But I'm just saying, I feel like sometimes that we give these guys too much credit. Look at oh my gosh, played at Notre Dame. Jimmy Clausen, did he play at Notre Dame?
Yes.
Like Jimmy. Yeah, it's like, dad. Everybody was talking about how great this guy is going to be. He played 2 or 3 years in the NBA. Never was always a backup. So, I would wonder. Sometimes I wonder about these rankings when it comes to quarterbacks and stuff like that. I really haven't seen. Like, look at Tua and Lawrence and Fields. All 3 of them pretty much working on their last leg in the NFL. If they didn't get new contracts, they haven't really done anything impressive. I don't think Williams will rank that high, but that's another one. I don't see what they see these guys sometimes.
So I just picked a year and I just took a shot because I thought that this would be, this is 2021, the class that would just be in the NFL right now. And so the one thing I will say, DeAndre, is if you look at the quarterback rankings or any position from year to year, you will see the best players are near the top of the board generally, and then it falls off from there. So that they are pretty accurate in the rankings.
Right. Yeah, but their production, like I said, it really doesn't turn out to be. If you really think about the best quarterbacks of all time, they probably really wasn't. I don't think Joe Montana. I wish he was 6th string at Notre Dame, and everybody got hurt, and then he got moved up to number 1. I don't know. Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of all time, and yeah, he went to Michigan, but look how hard he had to struggle. I don't think, did he start his senior year, or did he start the last couple of games? Yeah, I know it takes a long time for some people to develop, but he didn't. He wasn't eye popping. He was still a 6th round pick. I would like Brock Purdy out of San Francisco when he was at Iowa State. I saw him play a few times, and he getting the money. But Mark, I'll let you go. Let the other person get in there, man. You have a good night.
Thanks a lot, DeAndre. Appreciate it.
All right.
We will take. We've had Keith on the line for a long time. Yeah, we're past time, but I'm going to take Keith's call because he's been on here for a long, long time. But if you look at these quarterback rankings, they're a bit sporadic for 2021, but it's very interesting to see where these guys landed, because obviously most of them put up the big numbers and made their careers at a different stop. Quinn Ewers, Texas; Caleb Williams, USC; Sam Heward still in college; Brock Vandegrift did nothing at Kentucky; J.J. McCarthy, of course, a first-round pick in the NFL; Kyle McCord, a sixth-round pick wherever he went, and had the big year at Syracuse; Ty Thompson never started. He kicked around a bunch of places. Jake Garcia is now at Michigan as a third-string quarterback. Drake Mays, of course, a first-round pick to the Patriots in the NFL. Jackson Dart just was a first-round pick. So there's the back end of the top 10 going in the first round of the NFL draft. Tyler Buckner kicked around after Notre Dame. Miller Moss is at Louisville right now. I did not check his week 1 numbers. Garrett Nussmeier might be the best quarterback in college football, arguably right now, still at LSU. Look at this, Sawyer Robertson, who, of course, played at Baylor this past 2 seasons, and Caden Salter now at Colorado via Liberty, Tennessee. He's been all over the place, and it goes on down the list. Interesting. Luke Altmaier, Illinois, originally signed at Ole Miss, of course. All right, welcome into the Voice of College Football. We've got Keith showing up to send us home here.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
I am doing just fine, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I have not heard anyone speak yet about 203 total yards by Ohio State. Now, I know you guys were facing a very good defense, but I don't remember Ohio State ever being that low. I think maybe one year against us, we held you to like 240 or something. But can you tell me when you've been in the 200s before?
For as much as I keep statistics between my 2 ears, I do not know every yardage statistic in the history of Ohio State football, so I cannot tell you that.
Does that sound awful low to you?
Did you watch the game?
Yes, I did. Every
Okay.
down. Yep.
Okay. You do understand how they played the game.
Yeah, it was a defensive battle, big time in the first half.
Yeah, and it not only was a defensive battle, I think Ryan Day was very comfortable with knowing, okay, I could cut my freshman loose, or I could protect him and rely on my defense to win this game. And certainly once it got up 7-0 and then 14-0, I don't think he wanted to do anything that was going to give Texas any life. So your point is well taken. Ohio State was not prolific on offense, but they threw 20 passes and completed 13 for 130 yards, I think. So that's relatively low figure per completion. They should be a little higher than that. But I thought Julian Sand played extremely well. He had 4 drop passes, so they dropped 4 balls. So who knows what they would have gotten out of that. I do not expect Jeremiah Smith and Max Clear to be dropping passes all season. The running game was not good, except for, if you noticed, Texas ran the ball fairly well. Ohio State could not run the ball, except for when Texas needed a yard, they couldn't get it. And when Ohio State needed a yard or 2, they could get it. So one thing that carried over, at least for this first game from last season, is that both offensively and defensively, this team seemed to have a knack to make the play or convert the third down or the red zone or whatever the situation whenever they needed to.
Yeah, I saw that, and it was a game of inches rather than yards. It was just a peculiar game.
Ralph makes the point here that was going to be the next point I was going to make, and then I forgot it. Yeah, they were backed up in their own end of the field at the entire second half, and I think that severely limited what Ryan Day was willing to do.
Yeah, and rushing for 77 yards was pretty low for you guys too, but that defensive front seven by Texas is pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. And the only thing you guys got to watch out is saying doesn't turn out to be a freshman Penn State quarterback. Why can't I think of him?
Drew Aller?
Drew Aller, yeah. And he would remember his first 2 years he was check down Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I just wanted to talk to
Check down
somebody
Charlie
about
threw a 40-yard touchdown pass.
what's that?
I said check down Charlie threw a 40-yard touchdown pass.
Drew Aller last game?
No,
Or
Julian saying.
Julian saying did that one to Max Clark?
It was to
Tate.
Carnell Tate, yeah.
Carnell Tate, yeah. And in fact, Carnell Tate, he got how many yards by himself of those 133 or so?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't recall either.
Jeremiah Smith had a bad game. He was not the best player in America on Saturday, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it was funny that they kind of outplayed you in so many aspects of the game, but you guys played when it counted and made the plays when it counted, and you came up. But I think that was a bad decision by Arch Manning to try to sneak it in, and you could see Ohio State was all lined up to plug the A and the B gaps at all costs.
Yeah, they sold out, and they were right.
Yeah, they sold out, and they were right, and it could have gone so many different ways, but it looked like inexperienced quarterback felt the pressure and just did the thing that they've done so many times before, and just pulled the wrong thing against the wrong team.
Absolutely. Well, what do you think about your team's matchup this Saturday night?
I'm a little concerned about it because I think we have a distinct advantage in rushing and rushing defense, a significant advantage that should help us win. But from Brent Venables in Oklahoma State, they really need this win. In Michigan, of course we'd like the win. We'd like to win every game, but we don't need this win. If we lose this game, we still have the whole conference schedule in front of us. But
and Oklahoma does not?
Oklahoma does, but their schedule looks tougher, much tougher than our schedule. So
I agree with that.
The odds of them losing 2 more games between this week and the rest of the season are much greater than Michigan's. So I think that makes them more desperate.
Well, I would agree. I'm not discounting what you had to say, but I think that Oklahoma's playing at home, and as you mentioned, Michigan's got a lighter schedule in the conference. Also, Sharon Moore is not in any way in danger of his job. He's playing a freshman quarterback, and even though a lot's expected of Bryce Underwood, and for him to continue to develop and succeed, if he has a bad game at Oklahoma, it's not the end of the world. Versus, of course, Oklahoma went out and got a veteran quarterback to bank on their hopes this year. So he needs to come through this year, and they're at home, and they've had 2 lousy seasons in the last 3 years. So yeah, I would completely agree with you that from all those standpoints that Oklahoma seems to be the more desperate team.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope we win, but when you see a dog in the fight that's bitten and pretty angry,
Yeah,
it's not a good idea to get a bet against it.
Well, there's something to say about that, and that certainly there's a zillion examples of that throughout sports history. But I would also say that sometimes we overthink it. And if you check out my appearance on Michigan podcast today, you get a pretty good, strong sense of who I like in this game.
I saw it. I saw it, and I agree with everything that you said. And
I believe Michigan can run the football against Oklahoma, and I am not convinced in any way that Oklahoma can run the ball against Michigan. And once Michigan runs it against Oklahoma, that's going to open it up, and that's going to take a lot of pressure off Bryce Underwood, as opposed to throwing the entire game on John Mateer to try to navigate that Michigan defense. I really like Michigan in this game.
Yeah, and you had 7 minus passes for Bryce, and John had, or Steve had 9 minuses for Bryce. So there's room for him to get better, and if Bryce does better and we outrush them, we should win easily.
Yeah. I don't know about easily, but yeah, I get your point. There should be some breathing room there. Like, it's not going to be a 42-10, but
Yeah.
I do like, despite what Vegas is telling us about this point spread, I guess I'm giving one of my picks away right here, that I all off season, and now that they've played one game, especially, even though the New Mexico game was no just annihilation by any stretch. So I didn't really evaluate the Michigan defense against New Mexico because I didn't watch that game. I just watched Bryce Underwood's throws. But I do believe in Michigan's defense.
I do too. I think it was a total psych op by Moore and Martindale. If you watch the game in the first quarter, they had their usual 4-man front. In the second quarter, in the third quarter, they went to 3-man fronts. And I don't remember last time Michigan has won a 3-man front. I think it's a psych op, is that we're trying to really run deception on Oklahoma for next week.
Okay, we'll be looking out for that.
Yeah. So we'll see. Just watch and look and see if they ever go into a 3-man front. So, yeah, I think we have a good chance, but I'm worried about Oklahoma just being backed into a corner, and that there's just going to be this big monster fist fight.
Well, a fist fight, you should be comfortable with that with your Michigan team.
Yeah, we've been pretty tough the last few years, haven't we?
Absolutely. And I do have all the respect in the world for Brent Venables and his ability to cook up a scheme that's going to confuse Bryce Underwood. So, he did that last year to Jalen Milroe. But again, as I said on Michigan podcast, I put Bryce Underwood in a completely different category than Jalen Milroe, even after just one game. I think he can read a defense and make the right throw to the right player and pick out the right player. He showed us a propensity of that in one game versus what Jalen Milroe did over 2 years, especially his last season at Alabama was pretty sketchy.
Yes, and I'll give Oklahoma's defense this much credit too, because I watched a video on the 10 best returning defenses.
Okay.
And the thing that Michigan starts at defenses with is a very strict rush lane defense, which is really good at closing in running quarterbacks. And the only other team that came close to as good as Michigan, and they were very close. They looked almost identical to us, was Oklahoma. So if Oklahoma's got that boa constrictor rush lane discipline, everybody's going to have trouble with them.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I would not be surprised in either outcome.
Right, which gives Venables the credit that you were speaking of.
It remains to be seen if he is a first-rate head coach, but there is no question that as a defensive coordinator, he is one of the major reasons why Clemson was what Clemson was and was not once he left.
Right. Well, good, Mark. It's always good to talk to you, and ain't college football fun?
Yeah. Look forward to the games this weekend. We've got some bad ones on Friday, but it's a lower profile Saturday, but there are some interesting games still.
Yep. Of course, Oklahoma is the big one.
Yes, at least outside the state of Iowa. That's what they're telling me.
Yep. Oh, that's right. What do they call that bowl again?
The Cyhawk.
Cyhawk. That's it. Okay. Sounds like an amusement park ride or something.
It very well may be.
All right.
Keith.
Always good talking to you, Mark.
Appreciate you being here.
Okay.
Every night, folks, 10 p.m. Eastern Time or post-game, which means on Wednesday night, it'll be 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll figure out maybe if I really get into watching the NFL, I don't even know who's playing on Thursday, and watch an NFL game for the first time in a few years. Maybe we'll come on after the NFL game. I don't know. Maybe I'll have you guys vote on that. I'll run a poll. Should I come on at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday or after the NFL game? And then on Friday, I think we've got some bad college football games. And so unless there is just something that does it for me, I think 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday night is going to be a date for us. And then, of course, Saturday after the primetime games, and most notably Michigan and Oklahoma. Number of things to run down. First of all, the Amazon links in the description section of this video and all the videos. When you shop on Amazon, please use the link that we provide. It's the same exact shopping experience. There is nothing different about it. Amazon recognizes your account, who you are, what your orders were, your order history. Everything is perfectly the same. I've done this sitting next to about 18 different people, and they use the Amazon link, and they have the same exact shopping experience. And you take a few dollars away from Amazon that's worth $3 trillion, and you give it to the voice of college football. Think about that. So please consider doing that. Also, VOCFB Bets is available, the upper tier here on YouTube and also on Patreon. So you get my picks, you get Matt Zemek, Steve Days, Corey Bratta, and the under the radar selection from Steve Merrill. And then also keep in mind that we've got merch. And we are proud of what we put together here. And thank you so much to one Josh Mahler, who put together our merch store that looks something like that. That is just the main channel merch that you see right there. But we've got polos and t-shirts and hats available for all the major teams, about 20 to 25 teams. So please check them out. Tumblers and mugs and all sorts of good stuff and more to come. So vocfb.com. Just go to shop at the top of the page and you can shop till your heart's content. And we promise quality merchandise. And all the feedback has been positive. And shoot, while I'm still selling you stuff, Disputed National Champions, it's a book that you should read. I know you're watching a lot of football these days, but there's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night to sit here and read the Disputed National Champions book. So please check it out. While you're on Amazon using the Amazon link, just look up Disputed National Champions. You won't be disappointed. Thank you. We'll be back here on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time with Adam Carricker of Nebraska fame to talk about the Huskers and more, and take your calls right here at the Voice of College Football. The next time you will see me, Ohio State Live, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday. See you then.